What I mean, if you don't mind me asking, what is it? Because I know that you thought that you were done several times in the process, without getting into the story details or too much. Can you give us kind of some insight into what made the book keep coming back to you? Why you had to keep working on it?
Well, I changed the way that I wrote for some strange reason, because normally I write from beginning to end. I can't write, certain scenes or anything like that. I have to start at the beginning and go all the way through as if I'm reading a story. And for some reason this time, I wrote the last half of the book first. I think I was just anxious to get to it. So I wrote the last half of the book first, and then I wrote the first half of the book last, but I didn't write it, chapter 1, chapter 2. I kind of bounced around chapter 3, then chapter 1, then chapter 7. And it really screwed with the way that I normally write, so I think that kind of had an effect on the manuscript. But I figured my way through eventually with a little guidance.
Were you ever concerned that it was not going to turn out the way you envisioned because of that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This has been the book that I've been building up to, the one I've been dying to write, knowing how it was going to go, knowing this is what I want to really write about, but I have to get through these first 4 books first. And then I sat down to write it, and it didn't go well. And then plus, in the middle, I changed editors. So, different editors have a different point of view and a different way of looking at books. And so I got a whole new set of questions, and that made me question myself, and it's been a long road, Bob.
I cannot imagine. And folks, if you haven't read these books, you really should. It's they have the young adult fiction tag on them because they are intended. Obviously they're for kids that are, eighth grade through senior in high school. But it's very mature writing. I mean, it's not sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Although there's a little bit of that, but it's just really compelling stories. I mean, my daughter started reading the books first, my 13-and-a-half-year-old, and she was just like, "You got to get started on this." And we got all 4 at the same time, and she read one a day for 4 days, basically. And I thought, what is in there? Is it releasing some kind of a drug on her? Why? That was the pace she went through the Potter books. And, then I read them. It's good stuff for anybody. It doesn't matter how old you are.
Well, there are a lot of vampire books out there now, and they all seem to tell the same story. They tell the story of the girl that falls in love with a handsome vampire. And Vlad isn't like that. He's just a teenage boy that happens to thirst for blood and have fangs. And he's really immensely unpopular, and he's just going through his life and looking for acceptance. And I think that that's something that really appeals to everyone at any age. Whether you're a tween, you're a teen, you're an adult, that's something that we all want. We all just want to be accepted for who we are. And luckily, with that connection, I'm connecting with my minions, I don't have fans. I have minions.
I noticed that. I know there's references on heatherbrewer.com to your minions. How many of them have you taken a bite out of to have them committed to you?
Oh, I'll never tell. No, we have a really good time, They love being called my minions, and collectively they're the minion horde. And the great thing is when you have minions, you can send them forth to do your bidding. And my bidding is go and create other minions and get them to read my books. So it's working.
You're devious.
I like to call it crafty.
Crafty. Okay, we'll go with crafty. When you do a series about vampires, if you did one book, you might be able to just get away with throwing out a couple things and making it very Bela Lugosi and not have to hew to any particular details. But what I'm curious about is how much did you create out of whole cloth about what vampires are about, and how much did you research? I mean, it's not like there's, well, who knows? It's not like there's real vampires out there that we can study, but you make this case. And I don't want to give it away, but I mean, you create this whole nation of secret vampires and slayers, and how much of that is taken from research? How much is taken from your imagination?
Well, for me, I've always been fascinated by vampires, and not just like the vampires in fiction, but vampire lore, the history of where it came from. Why did people at one point in time believe that vampires were real? And so some of the lore is just really stupid. Like, there's this one story that says, vampires can't cross running water. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make any sense, because how do vampires travel? So for me, poking fun at some of the vampire lore really was a big part of creating this world. And asking myself, what if vampires were real? How would they live in our world? How would they live amongst us? And what would their rules be? They have to have laws, because I'd imagined that they were really just a sect of society. Mm-hmm. And so it just took a little bit of imagination and reaching back into the vampire lore, but I like to think I got it pretty close, if there really are vampires out there somewhere.
All right. Well, let's take a quick break. This is Bob Andelman, and you're listening to the Mr. Media Radio interview with Heather Brewer, author of the Chronicles of Vladimir Tod series for young vampires. I'm sorry, I mean for young adults. That's right. We'll be right back.